It is March 18th. It is 6 o'clock here at the airport. Welcome to the March 18th edition. At this time, Mo, can you do a roll call for us?
Sure.
Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. Commissioner Miller. Here. Commissioner Houghton.
Here.
Commissioner Bowen.
Here.
Commissioner Gregg.
Here.
Commissioner Grabman.
Here.
Vice Chair Maya.
Here.
Chair Glazier.
Here.
And we have a quorum.
Perfect. It's duly noted that on Friday, March 13th at 5 p.m., the Airport Commission Secretary duly posted this agenda on the bulletin board at the Airport Administration Building. Do we have any public comment? I know I have one speaker slip here. Was there any others? Okay, just the one. All right, I'd like to introduce Mr. Aaron Kuntz. Do you want to come up and introduce yourself?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Aaron Kuntz. I'm the Airport Relations Manager for the West for Signature Aviation. Coming out to visit the facility and make introductions. We had someone previously in this role, so I'm getting up to speed and understanding the lay of the land, and very much happy to support Spencer and our team here and the greater Santa Barbara community. Just wanted to introduce myself and make myself available should anybody want to talk or catch up or express any comments or concerns. Other than that, thank you.
All right, thank you. Good to have you here. Moving on to liaison reports. Both of our representatives are here, so glad to have you both. Councilmember Eric Friedman.
Good evening, everyone. Just a quick report. The council did a couple weeks ago heard the climate adaptation plan and went over that and just gave feedback on it. And then we are heading into budget season coming up, so we're going to have our first hearing in the budget, kind of a workshop in April 9th, I believe it is. And Enterprise Fund Airport's looking good, so we really appreciate the airport being in the positive since the general fund isn't so positive. But that's all we have, and good job here teeing it up, the climate adaptation plan for the airport. A lot of good questions asked moving forward. That's what we got.
Thank you. Councilmember Caston.
Hello. Nice to see everyone. I don't really have any updates for you.
All right. Thank you both very much for being here tonight. Moving on to the director report. Director Hastert, can you give us your report?
Thank you. A few items in no particular order here. I'm going to actually read the blurb from our engineer, but I wanted to let you know that we haven't forgotten about the General Western Aero Hangars. This is still a project that we are looking to bring forward and look at the restoration of those hangars. But we have a small update for you. Airport has received engineered drawings to temporarily stabilize the two General Western Aero hangars. The temporary stabilization will include installation of 8 wooden posts inside of each hangar to reinforce the hangar's roof structures and prevent any further sagging. Actual work is planned to take place immediately following the issuance of a building permit, which we are actively seeking right now, and tentatively scheduled for spring or summer of this year, and will take less than 1 month to complete. So I just want to let you know that even though we haven't been making much progress with that, we are making efforts to preserve them so they don't fall into worse condition before we actually can get to the final project. And then also...
I have a quick question on that one.
Yeah.
Sorry for my ignorance. Building permit is with whom?
City of Santa Barbara.
City of Santa Barbara. Thanks.
He is not here tonight. He will be at the next meeting, but we did fill the Capital Development Manager position that was formerly held by Sarah Iza before her promotion. And so we actually stole an employee from Public Works with the City of Santa Barbara. His name is Taylor Berryman, and I think is going to be a very good fit for the airport, especially with his background both in not just civil engineering, but also biology, which will help with permitting and some of the future work for the airport. So I look forward to introducing him to you guys in person at the next meeting. We did have a noise working group meeting just earlier today. And this was the meeting that I've been waiting for quite a while, because we hired a company to design some potential approaches to the airport. Nothing that I can get into much detail tonight or present to you tonight, because there is we basically got feedback from the noise working group that will be incorporated into amending those approaches if needed, and ultimately come back to the commission as well. But I want to let you know that as a major step forward, we've been working towards this goal for several months, and I I think everybody was very relieved to get to something that actually could potentially help out. Two of your commission members actually got a little preview because they're on the noise working group, but I'll definitely be excited to share more with you in the near future. I think it was Chair Glazier. If not, it was one of the other commissioners reminded me about TSA and just an update on the shutdown. There is still the government shutdown for Department of Homeland Security that does affect TSA, so they are working currently without pay. It is not negatively affecting our airport as much as you hear sometimes in the headlines for like Houston Hobby and some of the other airports. We do have some very dedicated, great TSA employees that are over there. And I don't see anybody here, but I know the SB Aviators are actually working for, I think it's on the 23rd, which is that Monday, if I'm not mistaken, providing lunches for the TSA. And so we're open to different ideas if any community members also want to help support that. But they're hanging in there. They're doing well. But it's a tough situation for them, I'm sure. And then I can't really go into much detail, but we did have a small spill on the airport from our one of our sewer lines. Luckily, it was detected very quickly and was under some of the bigger reporting limits. Still looking into the details of that. It doesn't seem to be related to like corrosion like some of the earlier stories and did not affect any waterways or anything, but I'll bring back some more information if I get that on that project. And that's what I have for the director's report.
Commissioners, any questions?
Yes, commenting about the Airport Noise Working Group meeting, congratulations on getting some progress on that. Those new approaches look really good. I'm sure the commissioners will be interested in seeing your full report on that. My understanding from several of the members of the Airport Noise Working Group is they would like to see a status item, a line item on our agenda for status on how things are going. I'm not sure how you feel about that, but I wanted to let you know.
Are you talking about a line item on the commission agenda?
On
or
the commission agenda,
Okay.
to give status on Noise Working Group.
Okay.
So it'd be something they're interested in. But congratulations again on those approaches. They look real good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Caston?
Yeah, what's the, is there a timeline for departures also?
So that we looked at approaches today. Departures will be the next big step. So currently, we're aiming to bring back the approaches at the next working group meeting, then ultimately to the commission and to the council. So it's still probably at least a couple of months away, but hopefully not much further than that.
So you think within 6 months or so?
I would hope so. Yes.
That'd be nice. Okay, thank you.
Vice Chair Maya?
Yeah, just going back to the General Western Aero hangars,
Mhm.
where does the funding for that retrofit come from?
So we currently don't have a funding source identified. The goal that we initially came to the commission with and to the council is to try to look for a community partner to find a good use for the hangars and then ultimately do some fundraising. And so what we are hoping for, and hopefully it will go well, is that we identify that use, whether that be a community use that was presented at some of our meetings, or for example, one of them was like an aviation museum or something like that, potentially working with Civil Air Patrol, identifying the use through a request for proposal process, which we haven't begun yet. And then once we have that use, working with whoever that entity is to try to do some fundraising with a small portion potentially coming from the airport as well. Because as we looked at that project, initially they were slated to be demolished, and there's approximately a $500,000 cost just to demolish the hangars. And so there's some room for potentially for the airport to participate in a portion of that and then ultimately do some private fundraising.
And the work that you talked about in your director's report to shore up the structure, where would that funding come from?
Oh, so that funding is just coming from our normal operating budget. It's a very small project. As I mentioned, it was eight wooden posts,
Mhm.
so very small scale.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Howden?
Yeah, another question regarding the General Western hangars. It's a very minor project. Would this be just our own staff that would be taking care of this, or do you have to put out an RFP to?
So
the
we
community?
did identify that this is something potentially that our staff could do, but because of the status of the hangars and we decided to go with an outside contractor for that. But we do have on-call contractors that work for the city, so it should not be. The only holdup will actually be the building permit, and that is actually a pretty easy process because of the the limited scope of the process
Good,
project.
great. Progress.
Yes.
Yeah.
Any other, Mr. Caston?
That if indeed you end up going and pursuing something like museum of aviation and other things, I remember this came up before at one point at the Cabrillo Business Park area. They had a couple of businesses that were talking about it and noting how NASA, some of the first moonshot, there was a lot of the businesses had things available to put in a museum. And I don't know if, I know we talked about it, this is going back 5-10 years, but we talked about Chamber of Commerce and others about kind of getting some of those things from the area for a museum, and you know, somebody taking the lead to do it. So what didn't materialize, so nothing ever happened. But there's additional sort of opportunities that maybe we can help with or put you in touch with people.
Thank you.
That's great.
And I just
Yes.
comment from Councilman Kasdan, we have identified airplane aficionados that have amazing collections that could easily fill one of those hangars, and so they're looking for a home.
Yeah. I just want to be careful we don't have too much discussion because it's not on the agenda tonight, and also we haven't selected that use. So Aviation Museum is one example of what could go there. It isn't necessarily what will go there, so I just want to make sure we don't get too far into the discussion.
Commissioners, any other questions? We have any speaker slips tonight? Oh, okay, very good. All right, then we will move on to the consent calendar. I would like to pull item number 8 off and discuss that separately, but other than that, Commissioners, do you have any questions on number 6 or 7?
I did.
Seeing none, do we have any
Wait.
speakers? Oh, sorry.
No, I
Councilman
just,
Caston.
I'm hopeful that the travel information, if it's a kiosk or something like that that's there, it includes opportunities for Goleta area as well, not just the lovely Santa Barbara. Yeah,
Yes.
I'm sure we could come up with, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
thank you.
Do we have any speaker forms for consent? All right. Can I call for a motion to approve the consent calendar, subject to pulling number 8 off?
I would like to make a
approve.
motion to approve the consent calendar with the understanding we're taking number 8 off.
I'll second.
We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Passes unanimously. All right. And then procedurally with that number 8, can I turn this back over to you, Director
I
Haster,
can
and give a
just-
little more color on this one?
I can just give you a little bit of an update and
Yeah.
answer any questions that you have, and then you can vote on that item separately. John Feldhans obviously is our properties manager, and he's working on all of the properties for the whole airport, including the business park located north of Hollister. We get a lot of inquiries for various different types of uses, and there's a lot of challenges with developing over to that area, whether it be cultural resources, water table, you name it. So to actually move anything forward has a lot of unknowns, and so one of those potentials is what you see in the packet tonight is a potential for a Costco gas station there. So that company is looking all around the city. They would much prefer to have it co-located with the warehouse, but they're looking at all options. This doesn't mean that we will actually bring something forward to be developed there, but they want to look at the sites that are identified and want to have the ability to negotiate with us if it looks like it's something that will work for them, but also allow them to dig into the background and look at the information as to how challenging that site is or isn't to develop, with some time to be able to do that without the fear that we're going to lease it out from underneath them. So what I would say is there's a lot of public opinion, good and bad, related to gas stations, Costco. No matter what you bring up, this is just to allow us to talk to them, try to work something out, and have them evaluate all of the different properties around the city, including, and when I say city of Goleta as well as airport, to make an informed decision on their part, and this allows us to do that work with them.
Okay. Commissioners, do you have any questions?
So there's really no commitment other than to negotiate in good faith with them.
That is correct.
And have there been other interests expressed on that same?
Not on
parcel?
that specific piece of property, which is why we had no issue with trying to enter into a negotiating agreement. Like I mentioned, it's a very difficult piece to develop. So, even if it was full speed ahead on this one piece of property, I still don't know what I would put as a percentage for possibility of that happening. But it's lower than, say, a 80% chance of happening, even if that was the only spot that they're looking at.
Is there a potential for a provision in the lease that if when they come to a point of saying no go, then we're out of the 12? I mean, can we shorten the 12 months if they get to a place where
this agreement, either party can cancel it? I believe it's on 30 days notice. Yeah, either party can cancel on 30 days notice.
Great.
So if we were to have another opportunity, we could pursue that, giving them the time to finish that, whatever that due diligence might have been. Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Well,
Yeah.
Paul?
First off, I like the idea. I hope it happens. It'd be good to get a lease out of that land. My concerns are the traffic issues with a impacted Fairview Hollister Avenue intersection, and whether that's an issue, and whether any issues with our dealings with the city of Goleta putting a major gas station right here.
As I mentioned, that is a challenging area to develop. Traffic is another reason why it's challenging. So yes, all of that would be what is looked at and addressed during this period, or at least identified, and then ultimately meeting with the city of Goleta and others if it looks like it's going to potentially move forward.
Okay, thank you.
Vice Chair? Dennis?
Wherever they go, it'll be a sizable revenue opportunity for whatever city it's in. I think I remember Costco gasoline is 8 to 10% of sales, and I imagine, and I'm sure Councilmember Caston could confirm this, but I suspect that the sales tax revenue of the city of Goleta is probably over $1 million a year. The sales tax revenue from Costco and Goleta is over $1 million a year.
We can't single out any particular businesses for how much they contribute officially. So, but yes, they are our number one tourist attraction for our tourist thing is Costco.
Vice Chair Maya?
The area that it's in is surrounded by the long-term parking lot there.
Economy lot,
Economy
yes.
lot. Would that stay the economy lot if this area were to be developed as a Costco gas
would
station?
stay. We would not move forward with anything that would impact our needs and operations for the airport.
Mm-hmm.
We are currently looking to build long-term south, which will hopefully reduce the use of the economy lot in the shuttle, but ultimately we still need to retain that for overflow. So we would not do anything that would impact our ability to use the economy lot.
Mm-hmm. And then for our aviation fuel concessions, there's a fuel flow fee. Is that something that would carry over to a non-aviation fuel vendor?
So I don't want to get into any specifics yet because we need to be able to negotiate with them, which is why we brought this forward to you today. But there's nothing that's off the table. Traditionally, I don't think that is how the non-aviation gas stations typically work, but there's nothing that's off the table.
Okay. Thank you.
One more question, sorry. Given what they're what they're doing is essentially spending a fair amount of money and time to do an analysis of what they can or cannot put there. Is it possible that in this agreement we could have whatever reports are available if they take the no-go? I mean, they may be doing ARC studies, they may be doing, who knows what type, or traffic studies. So if that'd be a valuable thing for us to have if they would be willing to give it up if they don't care.
Yeah, let me look into the details because this agreement has already been approved by our city attorney's office, and so to make a modification at this point might be a little bit difficult. But I think it does definitely work in our favor to be able to utilize any information that comes out of this. Maybe we can do an amendment to add that.
I second that idea. I like that. I mean, it works with private residential real estate transactions, so it would seem like anything that they discover should become knowledge to the city as well.
And honestly, a lot of what they needed to discover comes from reports that we already have. They just need to review them. So,
All excellent points. Any other questions? Do we have any speaker slips for this? We pull out. Okay. Can I get a motion to move this forward as recommended here?
I move to move forward Item number 8, the exclusive negotiating agreement with Costco Wholesale Corporation.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Passes unanimously. All right, moving on to administrative reports. We have a presentation tonight, don't we, Director Haster?
We do. So I'm very fortunate to work with a very highly qualified team with Campbell Hill Aviation Group, and we have 2 of their members here today to give an update to the commission on the airline industry and our efforts locally here at Santa Barbara. I will caution you, this is still a public meeting, and we don't want to give away all of our secrets. We have competitor airports and other people out there, but I would like to introduce Kevin Shore and Rohan. Say your last name one more time. Chef. Sorry. And they will be providing the update to you and then available for questions as well.
Thank you, Chris. Good evening. Good to see you all.
Could
Thank
I
you for
make just one brief request based on prior
Yes.
presentations we've had? Most of us here are not intimately familiar with your industry, so
No?
whenever you run into an acronym like LCC, ULCC,
Yep.
those kinds of things, if you could please explain them.
Thank you. And you,
Thank
you read our minds, and we promise to do that. If we use acronyms, abbreviations, anything that anyone doesn't understand, and we'll do our best to make sure we define any of them, please stop us in our tracks. But we understand not everyone speaks the same language. But again, thank you. It's great to be here. Great to see you all again. So I'm Kevin Shore, Vice President with Campbell Hill Aviation Group. We are a 13-person aviation regulatory and economic firm based in Washington, D.C. So it's lovely to be outside Washington, D.C., and much better to be here as well. With me is my colleague, Rohan Sheth, and he'll give you an introduction as well very soon. We have been in business since 1994, been doing work with the airport here, mostly continuously since about 2007. So we're very, very grateful to have been supporting the airport for that long. We do work for about 45 different airports throughout the United States, throughout the Americas, throughout Europe, helping them maintain and attract air service, which is the nature of what we do with the airport, and we'll talk about today. I've been doing this now for about 25 years. Sounds like a long time. Before that, I worked for Transworld Airlines, TWA, who I hope most of you remember, doing network planning, scheduling, alliances, and partnerships. I personally have worked for about 50 different airports, ranging in size from those that have no service to some of the biggest hubs in the United States that you all travel through and are familiar with. Today, we're going to talk about what's happening in the airline industry. We're going to talk about how airlines make decisions. And we're going to focus on what's happening here in Santa Barbara and talk about all the success, all the good things happening, but also talk about some of the things that we're looking at going forward. So I'm going to step aside. Rohan is going to start off and take you through the first part of this presentation. Please stop us if you have any questions as we go forward. There will also be time at the end for questions. And again, if we do use jargon, abbreviations, acronyms, anything, please stop us, and we'll be happy to explain. Rohan.
Thank you so much, Kevin, and good evening, everyone. Like Kevin said, I'm Rohan Sheth with Campbell Hill. I'm actually not based in Washington, D.C. I'm based in St. Paul, Minnesota, so I'm very happy to be here, in March. Definitely want to give you all an update as to what is happening in our U.S. airline industry. A lot happening, a lot of headlines, a lot of geopolitical events, and we'll delve into all of that. So I think if you're able to transition. Oh, great. Okay. Yeah, so let's delve into what is going on. It's kind of cutting off a little bit. Okay. Yeah, and then maybe. Okay. It's a PDF. Yeah, if you click that. Nope, down. Oh, nope. Perfect. Okay. Great. Okay. So, giving an update on the airline industry, as you all are probably very intimately familiar and see a lot of headlines. The U.S. airline industry has had a lot of changes over the past year or two, so definitely want to provide some data to help you all understand and be informed about what's going on. So starting with U.S. domestic capacity. So many different ways that we measure this, but one of the most common metrics that we use is something called ASMs, which stands for available seat miles. So this is the number of seats that are flowing in the U.S. airline industry domestically, and multiply that by the distance that's traveled. So accounting for the actual distance that those planes are going and actually flying passengers. So using that ASM metric and seeing how that has trended since pre-COVID in 2019, that is definitely higher than pre-COVID, and is continuously growing at 3% year over year across all U.S. domestic carriers. However, that growth is being driven by different types of carriers. So I know we have a couple of acronyms here. I'll spell those out. So the legacy carriers, so that's that bar on the bottom part of each of the bars there. That is what we would consider United, American, Delta, and Alaska. So those are the carriers that fly typically hub and spoke, flying to very concentrated hubs in the United States and flowing people between or through those to be able to go to other different destinations. So not flying directly to a market that a person might be intending to go, but flying them through a hub. So that is what we're considering a legacy carrier, and that segment or those carriers are growing the most and driving the growth of the domestic capacity, growing 8% year over year and accounting for the most amount of capacity in the domestic network. LCC is another category that is low-cost carrier. So this is how we define it, as a carrier that can typically provide like a hybrid point-to-point hub and spoke, but is operating on a lower cost basis and definitely paying more of attention to their cost structure and flying on a more cost conscious basis and providing maybe a little bit more of a cost conscious product to passengers. So that is including Southwest, which I'm sure everybody's familiar with, also Breeze and JetBlue. So that category is growing at 3% year over year. So not as much as the legacy carriers, but still growing a little bit and accounting for 22% of the market. Then is the ULCCs. So this is the ultra low cost carriers. That's Spirit, Frontier, Avelo, and several others. That segment of the market is actually shrinking, and much of that is because of Spirit. So Spirit has dramatically reduced their footprint domestically, internationally, as a result of going through not one, but two different bankruptcy filings, still going through the second one right now, hoping to come out of that here very soon. That's the optimism, at least. But as it stands right now, they are projected to be a third of the size that they were just a few years ago. So a dramatic reduction in Spirit. They were the biggest ultra low cost carrier in the United States. So for them to be a third of the size that they are now is driving that decrease mainly. The other big trend that we're seeing is the slowdown in main cabin or economy bookings, and actually more of a strength in premium traffic and premium growth. That might be a term that you all have seen in the headlines and news about how there's more strength and more growth with passengers that want to fly on a more premium product, front of the cabin, want more premium amenities. Obviously, that is something that the legacy carriers provide a better, more tailored product to, compared to the other types of carriers out there. So that's another thing I wanted to note as something that's driving the trend, with more growth with the legacies compared to the ULCCs. And then delving into exactly which carriers are growing and which ones are shrinking. So the chart on the left is showing the capacity in the first half of this year, or I'm sorry, the second half of last year compared to the second half of the prior year in 2024. And so I know that's a little small, but you can see that Breeze Airways is the one that's growing the most. They are a significantly smaller carrier than a lot of the other ones that are on that list there, but they've been growing a lot. The biggest point I'll note here is that all of the carriers that are currently flying through Santa Barbara are growing. And Kevin is going to get into this a little bit, and Santa Barbara's capacity is growing way more and surpassing the growth that these carriers are doing nationwide, which is a really, really great story that we like to show the carriers as we continue on our air service efforts. So you can see the growth numbers there. And then similar trend with the first half of this year compared to the first half of last year, again, in the measurement of ASMs, available seat miles, good growth across the Santa Barbara incumbent carriers here.
Sorry, one quick
Yeah,
question.
sure.
What did Allegiant do between what did Allegiant do between first half of 25 or second half of 25, first half of 26? It seems like they jumped a lot, and did they do something in particular? Or?
Yeah.
I think a lot of that is tied to their deliveries of new MAX 8 aircraft.
Yeah.
So they're getting, I forget how many, but they have a good number.
Yep.
So that's tied to their delivery of a new MAX 8 aircraft. And those MAX 8 aircraft seat about 200 people. So that's having a big effect on their growth year over year.
Is it Allegiant and Sun Country merging?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I can speak to that part. So yes. So in January, Allegiant and Sun Country announced that Allegiant will be acquiring Sun Country. That is still in the currently in the regulatory process right now, but that I believe is projected by the end of the year. That's roughly the timeline that they're making. So this will be a complete acquisition. And for those that aren't familiar, Sun Country is a Minneapolis-based carrier. I know them very well, obviously, being in St. Paul, mostly doing lower cost flying. And I know in the past they have flown through Santa Barbara in 2019. So definitely one to keep note of as Allegiant acquires those resources from Sun Country. Yep. All right. And then delving into passenger screening volumes measured by the TSA, we are seeing that the trend from last year and the year prior is fairly consistent to what screenings are by month. So you can see that on the chart on the left there. Looking at the first 2 months of the year, January is very consistent to what we saw in 2025. February is actually better. It has slightly better passenger screenings compared to 2025, which could be as a result of definitely some of the climate, at least, and the travel sentiment in general. That took a little bit of a dip early last year with the election, of course. And then the chart on the right is showing checkpoint volumes by day. So it's really interesting to see how days like Tuesday and Wednesday are less popular, and more of that popularity with flying is concentrated on the Thursday, Fridays, all the other days of the week, as you can see there, compared to 2019 in the black and in the orange year over year. You can see some of those recent trends. So oftentimes the carriers will actually park aircraft. They'll some of them are very nimble and are able to pull that capacity back and sit those aircraft and then redeploy those again on those more popular days that they're seeing travelers are flying. So definitely one. Yep.
I was interested. So you're able to gauge capacity by basically understanding the aircraft and the seats, but you're using TSA screening counts for actual humans on those
Correct.
planes?
Yeah. So actual passenger emplacements. So the actual passengers that are traveling through.
So the carriers don't share their actual.
Yeah, the actual passenger data. So yeah, we actually have. I don't know if we actually have this in this deck, but they do report passenger traffic to the U.S. Department of Transportation in a couple of ways, actually, through enplanements themselves, and I don't believe we have that data in here, but they also report it in terms of O&D passengers, so the actual tickets and understanding on a sample level where people are originating from and where they actually destined, like hoping to go, accounting for connections. So we have that data. The airlines do report that to the DOT. The DOT makes that available publicly to us, and we leverage that data pretty much on a daily basis.
Okay, so the screening counts are just
yeah,
sort of
we're
ancillary.
showing these screening counts just to illustrate the system-wide level and the trends that we're seeing rolled up to the top. But yeah, we have this data on a carrier and a route level.
Okay, thank you.
So then looking at all the different drivers and trends that we are observing, at least this year, in the airline industry. There's numerous ones here. We highlighted the ones that I think are of particular interest to Santa Barbara and the region as a whole. So looking at delivery and certification delays with some narrow body and wide body aircraft. The one that's kind of a little bit more interesting is the Airbus A220, which is an aircraft that is a smaller capacity aircraft compared to some of the other ones deployed in the networks, but is able to travel much further. It's honestly an enabler for new routes, new destinations, able to connect smaller markets to smaller markets as opposed to being forced to fly to larger ones. So that is one that has experienced delays over the past few years, as with other aircraft like the 737 MAX, but those deliveries are now trending in the right direction. So definitely a great aircraft, and currently one that Delta is using for the Salt Lake City service, as an example. And then another one, airline partnerships. I have a slide on that in a second, so I'll skip that for now. Air traffic control, staffing, and technology issues. That's been a really big one that's been talked about in the last year. So one to definitely monitor and see what transpires with that. Transborder sentiment and global policy shifts. That's a huge one we've heard over the last few days and months. We love our Canadian partners, but our Canadian partners may not seem as favorable to us right now. So that's something we're certainly tracking, as Canadian passengers aren't coming to visit in a tourism or a business basis to the United States as much as we would like. So certainly one that we're tracking in the data and talking to carriers like Air Canada and like WestJet and some of those Canadian carriers to understand what they're seeing. But definitely a drop-off and one to monitor. And then global policy shifts, certainly the recent events in the Middle East are one that we track, and the impact that has on fuel prices. So I believe I have a little bit more on that later. And then I briefly mentioned the strength of premium passengers and kind of the slowdown that we're seeing in main cabin bookings. That's another big trend that we're looking at as well. Airline partnerships. These are the ones that, there's so many different partnerships out there, but these are the ones that are of a little bit more heightened or increased interest for you all. A couple of them I'll note here. So Southwest has recently, as last year, as a part of a whole slew of changes that they've had, are starting to establish partnerships with global airlines. And we have some of those there, a Japanese-based carrier, a Taiwan-based carrier, Philippines. And with them being in the market right now, definitely something that we're monitoring and want to make you all aware that they are forging those partnerships presently. And as of late, announced a partnership with ANA. Alaska and Hawaiian. So Alaska and Hawaiian are now one as the Alaska Air Group. So both are flying as different brands, but still under the same holding company. They are obviously sharing a lot of resources together. Alaska now with longer range aircraft that they've acquired from Hawaiian are out now flying internationally from Seattle. So thinking about the Seattle service that we have now, They've launched Tokyo, they've launched Seoul, they're going to launch some new markets in Europe as well. So that service to Seattle now has that connectivity beyond. So definitely a great development and something very strong and good for Santa Barbara. And then real quick, the last one, Landline is a bus company that's partnering up with airports, partnering with airports and airlines to connect much smaller markets to airports and connect them for flying. So that's another really unique one that we're looking at. Just a couple more, and then I'll transition it over to Kevin here. I mentioned production and certification delays. I'll just speak very briefly that these are trending in the right direction. With all the talk that we've heard about supply chain issues, those I think are now being remedied, and the manufacturers, Boeing, Airbus, Embraer, they're delivering new aircraft at a much better pace than they were a few years ago. So that is allowing the carriers to grow and launch new markets, launch more frequencies, just be able to do a lot of the things that they were hoping to do in the last few years if it wasn't for the certification and production delays. So yeah, that was the last one. I'll transition it over to Kevin.
Thank you. Okay, so I get to do the fun part. I get to talk about all the fun stuff that's happening here in Santa Barbara. Sorry about that, Rohan. So on the left side here, so what we're looking at is looking at seats for the first quarter of 2026 versus the first quarter of 2019. And as you could see in the dark blue there, our capacity here in Santa Barbara is up 96% for the first quarter of 26 versus 2019, which is absolutely astronomical. And if you look in the light blue there, the U.S. market is only up 8%. So we're doing okay. We're slightly outpacing the U.S. average. On the right-hand side there, the first chart, you can see for the second quarter, our capacity versus 2019 is up 82%. The U.S. average is up 11%. And then also look on the right-hand side, you could see the year-over-year comparison. So the first quarter of 26, our capacity is still up 13%. The U.S. on average is only up 1%. Then for the second quarter, we're up 8%. The U.S. on average is up 3%. So again, no matter how we look at it, we're doing really well. And then if we compare our growth to other Southern California airports, for March of this year, the current month, compared to March of 2019, we are actually up 112%, so more than doubled. The next best airport, Ontario, is only up 50%. San Luis Obispo is up 49%. Go all the way to the right side of this chart, you'll see LAX is actually down 15% for this month compared to March of 2019. Part of this is because Spirit is much smaller. Frontier has moved out of the airport. Chinese carriers are flying a lot less now than they were in 2019. So again, whether we look at the Santa Barbara growth compared to the U.S. on average, other Southern California airports, we're doing really, really well. The other thing we want to talk about are load factors. So we're looking at, on average, how full are our aircraft. As you can see all the way on the left-hand side there, for the year end of November 2025, our Alaska service to Portland is the most full service that we have. On average, the aircraft are 85% full. American to DFW, on average, 84% full. Delta to Atlanta, United Denver, we're on average 81% full. And then if we go again to the opposite side of that chart, you can see Southwest to Oakland's only about 52%, United to LA, 59%. On average, our flights are about 76% full. Now, again, that doesn't sound like a big number, but because here in Santa Barbara we generate higher than average fares, the airlines are satisfied to have slightly less full airplanes, and they're still making a profit. And then if we look at our seat capacity going from January 2024, a 12-month sum of seat capacity, through November of 2025, you see that seat capacity is up 17%. But most importantly, our load factors have remained stable. Our flights are still about 78% full. There's a lot of markets where the airlines add a lot of capacity, but you see the load factors drop because demand doesn't keep up with that capacity. And this is what we hear from the airlines when we talk to them, that the market does a really good job of absorbing capacity. So just to remind everyone, our current nonstop service. So we currently have, for March of 2026, we have 11 destinations. We're down 1. That's Atlanta, unfortunately. But to make up for the loss of the Atlanta service, Delta gave us a 3rd frequency to Salt Lake City. We also have the Chicago service, which is starting next month with United, which we're very excited about, and we'll talk about a bit more. And then we will have our first carrier starting service to San Diego next month with 2 daily flights. And then our second carrier, Southwest, starting service to San Diego in August. So within the span of about 5 months, we will go from 0 to 2 carriers serving San Diego with 300 seats per day each way. We'll talk a bit about that as well also. But year over year for this month, our flights are up by about 12%. Our seats are up by about 17%. Our average seats per aircraft are up by about 4%. So again, no matter how we look at it, the market's doing really well. So I don't have to remind everyone the momentous day in April of 2021 when Southwest started nonstop service and the impact that it had on the market. And what it really did was injected low-fare competition into this market, which we didn't have. And so far, Southwest has done well. They added a lot of markets around the same time in 2021, and they pulled down a handful of those markets. But we're still doing well enough, which is great. And we talk to Southwest as often as we can to make sure they're happy. They're obviously happy because they're starting San Diego in August. So again, we have the flights to Denver, Las Vegas, Sacramento, Oakland, and then we'll have San Diego as well. And we'll talk about why San Diego is so important, even though it's such a short flight. So again, if we look from 2023 to year ended October 2026, our seats are up by about 29%, and you could see what has driven some of that seat growth. So that Delta coming back on the market in 2024, and then this year, even though we've lost Atlanta, we'll have Chicago, and we'll have the 2 carriers to San Diego. So if you look on the left side of this pie chart, of the chart that we see here, if you look back March of 2019, United had half of the capacity in the market. So we really were a United dominant market. American had a quarter of the capacity, Alaska 16%, Frontier 5%, Contour 4%. Jump to where we are now in March of 2026, we have a much more fragmented market, which means we have a lot more competition in the market. United has a third of the capacity, Southwest 27%, American 23%, Alaska 8%. And what's even more interesting is if we look all the way to the right there, what happens in September of 2026, we see an evening out of Alaska and American's presence in the market. Because with the addition of Alaska's service to San Diego, their presence will literally double in the market. They'll have 17% of our capacity. Southwest will still have 26%, United 34%. One of the more interesting things to look at, again, interesting for us because this is the fun stuff we look at every day, but if you go back to 2004, let's go back to 2007 when we first started doing work with the airport. At that point, most of our service was 30-seat turboprops, and if we were lucky, we saw a 50-seat regional jet. Okay? We got all excited when we saw 50-seat regional jets in the market. Jump to where we are now. So back then, the average aircraft size was 40 seats. 40. Fast forward to where we are now, that's almost tripled. Our average aircraft size here is 119 seats. So it's amazing, again, to see that the average aircraft here now is a mainline aircraft. It's not an RJ. It's definitely not a turboprop, that's for sure. So really excited to see these developments in the market. We perform a leakage study every year. What is a leakage study? So we're looking at all the people that live in this area and looking at what airports they use. As much as we wish they all use the Santa Barbara airport, unfortunately, for some reason or another, people do drive to other airports. Although I'm sure no one here in this room has done that, right? Okay. So this is what we call our primary catchment area. So we draw a line, we start an hour south of the airport, and we include the area 2 hours north of the airport, but we take out any of those zip codes closer to San Luis Obispo, since they also have air service, okay? No offense to Chris, we're going to leave out Santa Maria for the conversation here. If every airport had the same air service, then everyone in red would only use the Santa Barbara Airport. So that's our natural catchment area. Everyone in that area should be using Santa Barbara as their first airport of choice. In that area, we know we have 1 million people, and we know we have a really high average household income, which is, again, why airlines love adding service here. On the left-hand side, using our cell phone data, we can see all of the people who originate trips in the catchment area get on an airplane at some point to fly somewhere else. And on the opposite, on the right-hand side, we could see all those people who are traveling into the catchment area using an airport. It may be the Santa Barbara Airport, could be LAX. They could be flying into any airport and driving here. But the interesting thing to note is we have about 1.5 million originating passengers and about 1.5 million inbound passengers. And again, this is domestic only. This is based on the cell phone data that we have. And we can do a lot of interesting things with cell phone data nowadays, which I know is borderline creepy. But really tells us a lot about the travel dynamics in this area. And this is data that the airlines don't have. So we can just help airlines make better decisions about where to add service in the catchment area. So on the left-hand side here, what we're looking at is that for markets where we don't have nonstop service here in Santa Barbara, New York, Washington, Boston, Orlando, Houston, for example, we capture 32% of those passengers on average. 57% are still going to LAX. Now, every time we do this analysis, the numbers get incrementally smaller. It will never get to zero, but just as long as it's getting smaller. And then in the middle pie chart there, well, that's looking at markets where we have nonstop service. So we're talking about Denver, we're talking about Dallas, Seattle, Portland, all of those markets. On average, in those markets, we're capturing 49% of the traffic. So again, we can demonstrate to the airlines we do a good job of recapturing that traffic when we have nonstop service. In the markets where we have service, only 26% of those passengers are using LAX. So we see a significant difference. So to look at some math real quick. So for the Bay Area, the 3 Bay Area airports together, for the year ended October 2025, from our O&D data, our origin destination data, which Rohan talked about earlier, we know that there's about 152,000 annual one-way trips between the Santa Barbara Airport and one of the 3 Bay Area airports. We don't care how people are getting there. We know most are flying nonstop. Some might be connecting, but we know this is where the trip is starting, where the trip is ending, and vice versa. That's 152,000 annual one-way trips. There are 126,000 annual one-way trips that are leaking to other airports. They're going to Burbank, they're going to LAX, they're going to San Luis Obispo. So the market size is actually 279,000 between our catchment area and the Bay Area, or the equivalent of 333 PDUs, passengers per day in each direction. Now again, that is an average. Certain times of the year that's going to be higher than others, certain days of the week that's higher than others. But the important number here is that 45%. 45% of the passengers traveling from our catchment area to the Bay Area are using other airports. Now again, United is increasing their service to San Francisco to 5 flights a day. They're using more mainline aircraft. We will see that number go down. But it's still astonishing to think that 1 out of every 2 passengers traveling from the catchment area to the Bay Area is still going to another airport. But where this becomes interesting is if you look at a market like New York, we know that there's about 51,000 annual one-way trips between the airport and the 3 New York City airports. Another 112,000 that are using other airports. So that actual market size is on average 223 passengers per day each way, of which almost 70% are going to other airports. Now again, as we get even more and more hub service, we'll recapture some of those passengers. But until we get nonstop service to New York, which unfortunately I have to say isn't happening soon, we're not going to recapture a much greater share of those passengers. But again, it's those markets like New York, like Washington, like Chicago up until next month, Boston, Honolulu, and now Atlanta, that we're really focusing on when we talk to the airlines. And again, the airlines don't have the leakage numbers, so we can use that to educate them and help them understand how big the market really is. Yes?
Would the A220-300 have the ability to fly to New York?
Yes.
It does?
Yes. We just have to find the airline that's willing to do it and the airline that has those A220s in the right place. So yes, Delta has A220s, Breeze has A220s, but they don't have them based in New York. And well, Delta has them based in New York, but they're not flying them transcon out of New York. But that is a candidate airplane to do that at some point.
Good.
Yeah. So I talked a bit about cell phone data, and we call cell phone data mobilytics. And I want to demonstrate some of the power of mobilytics. And I know we've talked about this in previous presentations also, but now it's even more applicable since we have nonstop service starting to San Diego. So using our cell phone data, we can see all the people that are traveling into the Santa Barbara area and where they're coming from. And again, these people are flying, they're driving, they're taking buses, they're taking the train, they're roller skating. No matter how they're getting here, we know their cell phones are ending up here. We have the equivalent of 750,000 one-way trips based on cell phone data between Santa Barbara and the Bay Area. More importantly, we have the equivalent of 234,000 one-way trips for people traveling from San Diego to the Santa Barbara area. And again, when we say the area, I'm talking about the primary catchment area, which we talked about previously, and then looking at the San Diego DMA, the designated marketing area. So we're looking at cell phones that show up in both areas. And again, they're traveling between these areas in both directions. We don't know how they're getting there, okay? We hopefully soon they'll all be flying, of course. But what we know on the left-hand side here, the furthest to the left, we have 332,000 one-way trips for San Diego visitors traveling up to Santa Barbara. So those are both directions. We have another 323,000, incredibly similar number, of Santa Barbara visitors to San Diego. So again, those are trips in both directions. If we add those together, we get 655,000 annual one-way trips for people traveling between Santa Barbara and San Diego and vice versa. Based on our estimations, that should easily generate at least about 150 travelers flying in both directions between Santa Barbara and San Diego. Now, again, I talked about 300 seats per day each way, right? Based on our very conservative analysis, we think at least 150 per day each way will just be flying from Santa Barbara to San Diego. But when you look at all the places you will be able to connect over San Diego on Alaska and their One World partners like American, Japan Airlines, British Airways, you could see that the world becomes a lot smaller. With a quick 30-minute flight down to San Diego, these are all the places you'll be able to connect. The markets are all listed there on the left-hand side. Again, I apologize for the acronyms. Those are all the airport codes. But the ones in like Puerto Vallarta and Cabo are going to, you right now can't really connect to those markets using Alaska Airlines. So with the new San Diego service, you're going to have an incredibly easy trip down to Puerto Vallarta and Cabo. The markets in the light green there, you can technically connect to those markets on Alaska right now, but it'll be so much quicker to connect via San Diego than Seattle and Portland. So here you see the power of what that San Diego service is going to do. And Alaska Airlines has both established a hub in San Diego and will be scheduling for those connections. So again, next time you look to fly somewhere, definitely keep that option in mind. And also with Southwest Airlines, again, not as many markets, but as you can see, as Southwest has also established effectively a hub in San Diego, these are all the places you'll be able to connect on Southwest, including Hawaii, San Jose, Cabo, Puerto Vallarta, the East Coast. all of the markets you see there in green will be an easier, more convenient connection over San Diego versus connecting over existing Southwest hubs or focus cities, if you will. So again, hopefully I've convinced you all to take a look at connecting over San Diego once that new nonstop service starts. And I think it really is just going to open us up to a world of other connecting possibilities. So I want to talk real briefly about our air service strategy. So as you can see here, in red, we've got our target markets, the markets that we're currently talking to airlines about nonstop service. Some of these markets could happen in the next year or two. Some might be 5 to 7 years away. Some may never happen. And when we come back and do this presentation again, this map is going to change because as the airline industry evolves, as airline corporate strategy evolves, this is going to change. Our existing service is shown there in the blue, and then announced service, which is Chicago and San Diego, is shown there in green. So what are our air service priorities? Our first priority is always to maintain and support our current service, do everything we can to make sure our airlines are happy, make sure everyone knows about the current service, make sure everyone knows about the great places you can connect over San Diego. We talk about, with the airlines, about increasing frequencies in select markets. So again, we're going to be seeing up to 5 frequencies a day in San Francisco. We're going to have a second frequency to Portland this summer. So again, the airlines know that if they put capacity in the Santa Barbara market, we will absorb that capacity and fill up the airplanes. We are real busy right now. The airport's real busy to make sure that when United starts that new service to Chicago next month, when Alaska starts the new service to San Diego next month, Southwest starts San Diego in August, everyone knows about these flights. And everyone goes and books these flights. And we'll talk about Chicago in a minute. And then we continue to talk to Delta about bringing back Atlanta. And we think it will happen someday. It might not be for a few years. We do see that the route did show initial good performance. It just didn't produce enough revenue to justify using effectively a whole airplane to fly from Atlanta to Santa Barbara and back each day. And again, Delta wants you all to know that they regularly look at all of their routes and make careful decisions about where to allocate aircraft. We also know that the A220, the aircraft they were using to fly here, has a very limited use in Atlanta. There are very few of them. So it made it really hard to rotate the crews between Atlanta, Santa Barbara, and back. But again, every time we talk to Delta, this is something we're bringing up. And we're also talking to Delta about potential service to Minneapolis to backfill what we had with Atlanta. So yes?
I see you've got Vancouver.
We do, yes.
So let's say we get a flight from Vancouver. Do we become an international airport? Do we change from a municipal airport?
Well, technically, I guess yes, but Chris, why don't you answer that?
So when we look at international destinations, we're very limited in what we can look at because we don't have customs facility here at Santa Barbara. The difference with Canada is they have pre-clearance customs, so you can clear U.S. customs in Canada. So technically we would serve a international destination, but we don't have international services here available for other flights.
I mean, I guess we could technically change the name to Santa Barbara International Airport. Yeah. So, but so with Vancouver, we would technically be an international airport, And again, the power of Vancouver is not just that local market flying between here and Vancouver, but the powerful Air Canada hub in Vancouver, which feeds Asia, feeds Europe, feeds all of Western Canada.
Yeah. And the cruise market, too.
And big cruise market, So, yes?
I had a question for you on your priorities there. You're showing the hop up to Santa Rosa to STS.
Yes.
I know that airport really well. It surprised me there'd be enough interest between these two locations.
So if you think about that San Diego cell phone data that we showed just a couple of slides ago, that similar analysis for Santa Rosa shows that we would be able to support nonstop service.
So now, about the wine industry.
Yes. Oh, definitely. Now, it probably wouldn't be daily, probably wouldn't be year-round, might just be weekends only, or like a Thursday, Sunday to bring people up and back. But there's a big community of interest. And again, based on the cell phone data, we see a lot of people traveling between the two areas.
I'm one of them.
How many tickets can we count you for?
I fly myself.
Oh, that doesn't help. So I talked a bit about the Chicago service, and yes, we did have Chicago service right after COVID. But for a number of reasons, that service didn't survive. But now United is coming back with daily service starting in April. And the great thing about this service is it's going to offer a different time channel for Santa Barbara passengers and for passengers throughout the eastern United States, because it will leave Chicago O'Hare at 9:30 in the morning, get here at 11:30 in the morning. It will then turn around at 12:30, get back to Chicago at about 6:30 or 7, and you can then connect all up and down the East Coast. You can connect to Europe. So again, for those people that don't want to get on a flight at 0500, 0600 in the morning, there's another opportunity. And the other great thing is United is using 160 passenger MAX 8 aircraft, which has state-of-the-art amenities, big screens with Bluetooth. So it'll be a really great product. And as you could see there, for United passengers, they will now get one-stop access to 65 markets that they don't currently have one-stop access over Denver, LA, or San Francisco. So again, if you look at the bottom box there, markets like Milan, Athens, and Dublin, United passengers now will have a one-stop option to get to those markets, which is really, really exciting. And most importantly, we just met with United at one of our airline airport speeding dating conferences, and they're very happy with the advanced booking so far. And they said that it's actually booking ahead of their U.S. system for April and for the summer. So we're really, really excited about that.
Kevin, what time did you say the Santa Barbara to O'Hare flight is?
It's going to leave here, I think, about 12:30. Do you know the exact time? Yeah, I think about 12:30. Yeah. And I still want to reiterate that even though Delta has discontinued the Atlanta service, they have plenty of connecting options via Salt Lake City. With 3 flights a day, we're going to hit all of the potential connecting markets, so it's really good schedule options throughout the day. And you could see all the markets in the East Coast, including some in Mexico, all throughout the eastern United States, but also an easy place to connect to Europe, to connect to Canada, to even connect to Asia. You're not going that far out of the way to connect to Asia as well. So even though we do want to see that Atlanta service back, the Salt Lake service does provide Delta passengers with a lot of options. I know I talked fast. I know we used a lot of acronyms and other big words, but we're incredibly optimistic, incredibly excited about what we see happening in the market. And again, as long as we keep the airlines happy, we fill up the planes to Chicago and San Diego. It's just the tip of the iceberg, and there's going to be more to come. Can I answer any other questions? Yes.
Being in the Caribbean a couple months ago, I was amazed to see that American Airlines had 10 flights a day to 4 cities in Cuba.
Yes.
So any thoughts on if things were to open up, how things could change there?
A very interesting question. And actually, when Cuba was opened up under, I think it was the Obama administration, we saw a huge influx in flights to Cuba. So it's quite possible that if relations normalize, we do see more flights to Cuba. We actually are now seeing American. They have filed for approval with the DOT to start serving Venezuela again. So I would assume if our relations with Cuba normalize, you'll see more flights to Cuba. Yeah. Yes.
2 questions. On the slide where it talked about increased capacity, Santa Barbara average load factor.
Yes.
And I think you said somewhere in the 70% was our average or something like that.
Yeah, high 70s. Yeah,
what's
78.
What's industry average for?
Oh, good question. Do you know what industry average is? My assumption is in the low 80s.
Okay.
I believe, yeah. So I think industry average is about the low 80s. But again, because we are able to generate higher than average fares here, the airlines are okay with less than full airplanes because they're still making more than enough money.
Great. Second question, how much has San Diego Airport grown? I mean, I lived there years and years ago, and I remember it not much bigger than Santa Barbara Airport. So.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it's grown a lot.
I mean, how can you compare it to like Burbank or
No. I'd compare it more to like Ooh, that's a good. It's grown. They've got 2 terminals. They've just renovated a terminal and opened a number of new gates. I would say it's closer, probably almost a Salt Lake City kind of operation.
okay.
Yeah, but it's still, again, if you're flying in on Alaska or Southwest, all your connections will be within the same terminal. You won't have far to go. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
And how would it compare, how does San Diego compare to San Jose? What's the story with San Jose these days?
Oh, gosh. I mean, as we've seen, the tech industry move jobs out of Silicon Valley, as people have migrated out of the Bay Area, San Jose's really suffered. Their capacity's down significantly, especially airlines like Southwest and Alaska that were pretty big there have pulled capacity down a lot. So they've really suffered, since COVID, yeah. But again, we are still talking to airlines about Santa Barbara, San Jose, because we know there still are a lot of synergies between the 2 areas. And again, based on our cell phone data, we know that there are an absolutely huge number of people who are going to that part of the Bay Area, but we don't have nonstop service. So we show that to the airlines as often as we can. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions, clarifications?
One comment.
Yeah.
Very nice presentation. I
Thank
always
you.
enjoy. I mean, you packed a lot of information and numbers into here, and yet it was very engaging.
Thank you.
I appreciate the report and just knowing this as we, strategize going forward. It's very helpful.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Any public comment? All right. Thank you very much, Kevin.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Director Hastard, back to you for item number 10 and some financials.
Thank you, Chair Glazer. I apologize. Kevin tried to keep the numbers as low as possible, but now we're going to give you a bunch of numbers. So I'm going to turn it over to Jonathan Abad, who's going to go over the financials.
Good evening, Airport Commission. Jonathan Abad, Business Manager, with more numbers. I'm here to present to you the mid-year second quarter financial review. We have a fiscal year that starts in July, ends in June. So December 31st would be the end of the second quarter. And for this presentation, I'll be mainly comparing last year's mid-year compared to this year's mid-year. I'll start off here. As we heard from the last presentation, we've had sustained growth and year-to-year record passenger counts. As a highlight, last August we saw the highest monthly passenger count, 141,000, almost 142,000 there. That's a 4.2% increase from the August of last year. And as you can see here, kind of consistent with the information you saw earlier, but just localized here in Santa Barbara, you see our growth continuing year over year. And that translates to higher revenue. Terminal revenues up 4.43%. Commercial aviation up 8.52%. Non-commercial aviation 8.13%, and commercial industrial about 1.5%. And under the terminal leases, parking slightly off, but offset by rental car up 15%, concessions, that's restaurants and gift shop, up 10%, and the ground transportation strong, up 15% from last year. And the commercial aviation up 8.52%, primarily driven by the landing fees up 15.21%. We started getting landing fee revenue from Delta after 1 year of abatement. And then non-commercial aviation up 8.13%. You can see fuel landing fees up about over 10% there. Commercial aviation, commercial and industrial, it's about 1.5% up. So combined, the airline-related revenues That's the terminal and commercial airlines. Makes up about 2/3, about 63% of the revenue. And non-airline driven revenues from industrial and commercial industrial and non-commercial aviation makes up about 1/3. That's about 37% of our revenues. And overall, revenue's up 6.3%. You see that transfer in that comes from the customer facility charge. It's from driven by the rental car activities. And miscellaneous revenues up, you see 22%. It's from badging and other sources. And overall, operating expenses are nearly flat, slightly down actually, about 1%. Increases are driven by staffing, allocated cost, and fire staffing. That's 10, 22, and 26% respectively. That's driving up the cost. But it's offset by decreases in transfer out and special projects. And the transfer out last year was mainly for the airport portion of some FAA grants, which we haven't had yet for this year. And for special projects, the PFAS testing activities just isn't as much so far as it was last year. And we have a net operating surplus of $2 million so far at mid-year. After capital transfers, we're running about a $2.25 million in projected use of reserves. We have a hefty capital plan for fiscal 26, driving the 186% increase there you see in a capital transfer. That includes a long-term south parking that we budgeted. It should be going out to bid this summer, and it should give us some annual savings after that. And here we have break down the allocated cost. That's the total cost of services that the city provides the airport, $4.8 million. And let's see, 2.3 million or 47% for basic allocated cost. I'll go over that in the next slide. But we also pay the city for the aircraft rescue firefighting staffing, about $2 million or 42%. About $350,000 is engineering staffing, and 3% for, let's see here, for additional information technology staffing. Again, this is through mid-year so far. And next here is the allocated cost, and this is the basic services that the city provides. The airport, the highest one's property insurance. We have a lot of properties here, 31% or $705,000 so far we paid. And in the indirect allocated cost, that's 30% or almost $669,000. That's what we pay for the accounting, human resources, city clerk, city attorney, indirect allocated costs that we pay the city. Vehicle maintenance and replacements next are 15% or $336,000 so far we've spent. Liability insurance, $236,000. Information technology and communications, about $313,000 we've spent so far this year through mid-year. And here's some notable accomplishments over the first half of the fiscal year. Safety and readiness remains our top priority. We successfully completed our FAA emergency exercise, confirming strong coordination and preparedness. We also handled the phone system outage by quickly activating backups and maintaining service. That shows our continuity plans at work. And we're expanding services, as you've heard, and strengthening revenues. New flights to Chicago and San Diego in April, and increased Portland in May. And we also approved about 7 leases the first 6 months of the fiscal year there, reflecting strong demands and supporting a stable long-term revenue. And we maintain stable operations through peak travel season. And as you know, during the December storms, temporary flooding, we had temporary shutdowns from flooding, but that staff already had prepared and responded quickly to. And we safely reopened with minimal disruptions, demonstrating strong resilience and coordination. And with that, I thank you very much and take some questions.
Commissioners, any questions?
Yeah,
Paul?
I had a question for you back on slide number 4 when you're talking about all major revenues up. It looks great except for commercial industrial. I'm assuming that's our rental income, and that's below inflation.
Yes, we have some planned vacancies there, which I could turn to John for more information.
I could also just
okay.
hit on that really quickly. A lot of the growth that you see is related to the increased activity at the airport. And so we don't see that on the north side for the non-aviation properties. A lot of those are very stable leases. And so depending on in the lease when their CPI increases come up, things like that, you should see it at least be about the same as CPI. I will say that there is a renewed focus on the north side properties, but that's lagging a little bit behind some of the aviation properties. So you will hopefully see some new leases. Well, you even approved a chance to negotiate one tonight. You'll hopefully see some exciting stuff coming forward in the near future. But then we're putting a big effort into the specific plan area as well to just see what areas should be redeveloped, do a facility condition index of our existing buildings. So it's lagging a little bit. And not seeing that growth that you see for the rest of the airport because that's not tied to the increased activity.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Friedman.
Just want to add to that in terms of leasing. The city, we're working on standardizing and upgrading the leases with all the different enterprise funds. The harbor, we probably saw in News Talk, we had some issues with some of the leases there. So we're looking at modernizing them and getting them standard across all the enterprise funds. In particular, airport and harbor would be affected since they're two of our larger ones. So that will actually probably address some of your questions in the future. As new leases come up, they'll be addressing the CPI and all that.
Go ahead.
Thanks for all the detail in the background there. I had a question on the sort of the revenue expense summary that was in the agenda and one of the items there, which you don't really have in your slides.
Yeah.
Though it's also through period 7. But there's an item, other income, which you've got budgeted at 6.17 million there, but you've only realized 184,000, which means it's only at 2.99% year to date there, which I suppose is probably what contributes to being at 47% of revenue for 7 periods. So could you speak to what is that other income and why is it apparently budgeted at 6 million, even though last year it was only realized at 67 million or 67,000?
That, let's see, let me think about. The one I wasn't 20, PFC was last year, 25. I'll have to, I'll have to get back to you on that one.
We'll take a rain check and get back to you. That there's so many different things that roll up to the different areas.
Sure. Yeah, I've noticed the roll-ups are not kind of symmetric in all the reports. Okay.
And that's not grant issue either.
Yeah. It just looks a little underwhelming if you're at seven months in and you're at 47%.
Oh,
Yeah.
you know what? I'm sorry. Yeah, I realize that this is now. We have budgeted in here. Yes, I see the special. Yeah, in the special projects and other income, we budgeted the like $5 million worth of insurance, like damages. So on the expense side, and we're going to recoup almost all of that except for $250,000. So that's what it is. It came in at the very tail end of the fiscal year. And
so we have a lot of flood damage that is out there
Yeah.
that John and his
Okay.
team are
Really
working on getting repaired. So we're
Okay.
anticipating a lot of insurance reimbursement coming in, but we haven't seen that yet.
yeah, none of the expenses have been incurred at that point, but it's been budgeted as soon as we determined what the amount was.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Vice Chair Maya.
On page 5, the revenue sources, conspicuously, parking is down, and it's the only item down. You mentioned that the operating expenses are also down, which is good, but any explanations you can give as to why that's down? Is it a safe assumption to say that people are taking taxis and Ubers more frequently, or why do you see that parking revenue dropping off?
Thank you for the question. I actually looked at month to month. We were ahead up until September, and October started sliding back down, and it actually coincided with the employments. And actually, October, November, December, we're slightly down on employments this year than last year. Although we started pretty strong. We're trying to determine, why that is. Hopefully, it'll swing back, especially with the new routes coming in.
Okay.
But that's one thing that explains it.
But then you did see the increase in what we listed as ground transportation, and that does include Uber and Lyft and some of those.
Sure.
So some of that is recovered there.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Any other questions, clarifications? Any speaker slips? No more public comment? All right. Well, with that, we stand adjourned. It is 7:25. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.